The clock has started.
Vier, drei, zwei, eins,
Go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting Vobie One-Eyed Kenobi Showbie with me, Richard Vobes, on his Todd this evening from a house in Worthing at the foot of the South Downs, the edge of the English Channel, and with a nice warm jumper on because it's quite cold up here in the studio where I am today. However, it is a bit windy and a bit blowy outside, or at least it was earlier this morning. It may have all changed. And on the 29th of October 2021, I got some bad news about the Bald Explorer walk that we're all going to go on. All 478 of us. Coaches have been primed. Aeroplanes are coming in from other parts of the world. Taxis have been at the ready. Horses and carriages are all ready and lined up to go. But alas, it has been cancelled, my dear gentle viewer. Cancelled. Yes, it has been scrubbed. It is no longer happening. It is a dead walk. The walk that was is no more. I'm so soggy about that, as indeed is the clay floor from which it was that we were at one time going to be walking upon, like Jesus of Nazareth, walking on the waves of the sea. Only in this case, we would probably get right up to our neck in sloshy old mud. And what with the 30-mile-an-hour wind and rain coming around, hitting us and what have you, I'm afraid to say it would be atrocious. And people would be blaming me, like they always do, for disorganisation and being very offended by the whole lot of it. So I've had to make the executive decision, which was incredibly difficult, in which somebody said to me, "That walk we got tomorrow, do you think we should cancel it?" Yeah, I think so. That's the magnitude, ladies and gentlemen, of decision-making that goes on in the old Vobes' brain. Yeah, I think so. And so, rather than do the walk, I have a public announcement to make. It goes something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, please listen with your ears. The Bold Explorer walk is now turning into a Bold Explorer pub meeting. Yes, quite true. If you don't fancy coming on the walk, you don't have to. But if you fancy just meeting up for a little beverage in a pub, well, I've located a pub that I've been into once before with the lovely Julia for 11 o'clock. So it'll still be the same start. No point getting there any earlier because the pub doesn't open until 11 o'clock. And it's called the Thatch Inn at Hassocks. Now, they don't know we're coming, so, you know, we don't want hundreds and thousands of people coming. So please, could you stop the trains, stop the coaches and horses, turn the planes back, make sure those 4,562 walkers don't come. Just a handful of very nice people. It would be good if you want to come. The Thatched Inn, for those of you who don't know where it is, here it is. It's that's the pub. And it says here, nestling at the foot of the South Downs, the Thatched Inn, with its picturesque roof of Norfolk reeds and oak beams, has spectacular views over the Sussex countryside to the Ditchling Beacon. David and, I can't read the other name, are your hosts, and their friendly staff pride themselves in offering you the best hospitality, unless, of course, the Bald Explorer walking group turns up with grubby boots, moaning and groaning that they're not doing the walk they wanted to do, but instead are going to have to sit on their bottoms and drink copious amounts of beverage. Apart from the standard menu, which includes char-grilled steaks and fresh fish, our specials menus changes regularly. In fact, by the time you've ordered it, the time it gets to the plate, it may be somewhat different. To complement the food, we have a fine selection of traditional real ales, chilled lagers, fine wines and spirits, soft drinks, and not forgetting, of course, a range of non-alcoholic beverages for the driver, the designated driver, which is, of course, probably likely to be me. Families are welcome, and so are the Bald Explorer walking group. Wouldn't that be lovely? By the way, there is a Christmas menu if you are so inclined, and you have to be somebody who can play a guitar by the looks of things. But anyway, never mind all that. That is it. Now, you might say, where the hell is it? And that is a very good question. And the answer is, it is on the Thatched Avenue. Is on no, sorry, not the Thatched Avenue. The Thatched Inn, it says here, is on Grand Avenue off Oakley Lane in Hassocks. Just look it up on the internet if you want to come along. We're going to... Stop that. Silly thing. We're going to be there from about 11 o'clock. You're welcome to come along and pull up a Nimbus deadbeat and join us. And it would be nice if you did. You don't feel you have to. We're not going to go for a walk. Well, we could walk along the road a little bit from the car to the pub. There is a car park. Julia and I have been in there before. I think we played a game of pool once. Although, of course, if you're outside in the rain, you could easily play another game of pool for free. Anyway, that's the plan, and you're very welcome. 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay. So sorry about that. Do let Linda Kane know, because Andrew Norris is coming and he says he's got a little surprise for her. But let's hope he keeps that zipped away. And hopefully Linda will come in all her leathers and chains, which would be lovely to see, of course. So if that doesn't get you all there at 11 o'clock sharp, I don't know what will. Anyway, welcome to the Friday Night is Music Night show, which is the one show of the week that has no music whatsoever in it, except we do from lovely John Fox. Yes, and you no prizes to guess what instrument he is playing tonight. The bagpipes. No, that's not quite right. It's not the bagpipes at all, actually. He is going to be playing a miniature chihuahua. It's very difficult to get the chihuahua, to get all the notes out. You can get several of the notes and not necessarily in the right order, but it is rather amusing all the same. But we will see. He may decide to play a guitar or something less interesting, but we'll see how it goes. If he could, in a future video, play the chihuahua, we would, of course, be very worried and would be ringing up the RSPCA. pretty swiftly, to be honest with you. Anyway, that's all to come in today's show. Also, Bernie has got his last video, his last ever video. You will never see another video from Bernie on the rivers of Rye, but you may see some more videos from Bernie on all sorts of other interesting and equally fascinating subjects. So hold your breath and wait for it. But in the meantime, we have the last of those, so you'll sure not want to miss any of that nonsense. And that's all coming up in tonight's show. I'm looking down here because I have a list of notes to avoid reading out. Please don't read this out on the show. You are looking very sexy. Oh, thank you very much. Who's that from? Richard Vobes. Oh, yeah, sorry, that was just me. Anyway, it's nice to have you here. Don't forget, on tonight's show, you can give us a ring. We do have the studio phone back now, and the number to require is 0793 4746 790. Or you can ring the other number, which is 999. Ask for an emergency and say you've had your brain replanted. I'm not quite sure if it's like a bulb and comes up at Christmas, but it might be. So that's something else that you can do in tonight's show. Now, we are running technically for an hour, but if we overrun by a little bit, then you can carry on watching me in the hospital. I don't like getting run over, but sometimes if I am, then A&E is the best place. I'll still be spouting some old rubbish, which is very annoying to the doctors and nurses there, I can tell you. But the janitor, if there is an American caretaker there, he finds it immensely funny, so I'm told. Now, also on tonight's show, I want to, because the lovely Julia isn't here to sort of keep me off the stray and narrow, whatever that might be, I want to have a bit of a debate with you, because I was watching a thing earlier today, ladies and gentlemen, and they were talking about this BBC bloke, Tim Davis. I don't watch the BBC, I don't have a licence anymore, and well, happy am I about it, but you may well, of course, do. But he was saying, in the programmes that they make, we can no longer carry on being offended by things. And I thought, that's an interesting statement, because it seems like all the old heritage programmes have been taken off air because everybody seems to be offended by everything these days. And I wondered, who is actually offended? I would like to know if any of my lovely audience at any time is offended by anything they see on the telly or in real life or anywhere, because we live in a very strange world in which everybody seems to be offended at something, or so we're told. But I don't know if I've ever actually met anybody who is totally offended by anything. Are you offended? That's what I want to know in tonight's show. What has offended you? And what I want to know is, what are the consequences of that? I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking, well, you know, something might offend me. Somebody might say, drop their trousers and show me their little dingly-dangly. And I think, well, that's a bit offensive in a public place. But what actually happens? What actually happens? It's just a man who's dropped his trousers, he's got his dingly-dangly about, and I don't find that very tasteful, I have to say. And I feel, you know, a bit prickly about it. Oh, look what you've done. But what actually has happened? This is what I can't understand. What actually happens to you when you're offended? I mean, where's the crime? I mean, what do you? Are you a swooner? Do you go, oh no, and have a heart attack? Do you collapse to the floor and bash your head? Do you immediately throw everything into the air and strip off your clothes and run naked round the park? I mean, I would just like to know what actually happens when you're offended, because I can't actually work this out for myself. I was thinking, well, so what? So what? It's like, okay, so you're offended. If something is offensive and it continues in your face, then I can understand that can be irritating and you may wish it to stop. But if it's somebody says something in a television program, or they flash something at you and you go, oh dear, I don't want to look at that. As long as you've got the ability to turn away from it and walk away, then so what? I mean, what's the deal? And I don't understand why people are offended and what they're offended at, and if they continue to stand there and watch the offensive things, or in my case, watch my programs, if I say something that is offensive to somebody and then they continue to watch it, I think, well, A, you're a bit daft, aren't you? If you don't like it, then what's the point of carrying on watching it? You must be mad. And B, so what if I've accidentally, inadvertently, because I don't know every nuance of your character and the things that you like and that you don't like, what is it that actually is offensive? I mean, and why should I care if it's offensive? I mean, I'm not trying to insult people to hate people or beat people up or create a war or blow people or to do a criminal offence, but if I inadvertently say something, it's like, well, so what? I mean, what happens? Somebody says a word and you go, oh, and what happens? Does their brain explode? Do their ears fall off? If their nose leaking bogies? Have they swallowed their Adam's apple so much that it's gone down into their stomach and they've got to wait 8 hours before it comes out the other end? I just don't understand it. So please, tonight we can have a bit of a light-hearted but fun debate on whether you've been offended. What is it that offends you and why? And then, so what? That's what I'd like to know. Lots of people having a chat in the old chat room, which is absolutely perfect, and I'd be offended if you weren't, to be honest with you, but that would be it. Michael White says, usually it's the wet behind the ears, the university types who get offended. Yes, but what is it that's offending them? And what happens? I just want to sort of put it down into concrete terms, as it were. Audrey Forbes says, having been brought up on love thy neighbour and till death do us part, nothing offends me. No, I'm absolutely sure that those which were very witty in their times and risque and made you think, oh, look at them, they're saying these things. But people, they were just reflecting what some people are like. It doesn't mean that the writers are like it or the actors portraying the characters are like it or indeed the viewers watching it are like it. It's portraying a segment of life that perhaps we would rather not existed, but in the sad world that we are in, it does exist. And so you don't have to watch it. You might find, oh, it's offensive, but actually it's offensive, but in a way that's humorous and is teaching me something about the world. Which is, I think, a good thing. Station Master's Choice says, it seems these days that it only takes one snowflake to say, I'm offended, and the powers that be, run scared in case more people get upset. Risk-averse, too many ambulance chasing lawyers. But what I want to ask is, what happens when they're offended? This is what I don't understand. What happens? So I want somebody to call me on 0793 474 6790 and tell me what you are offended by, because I'd like to know what offends you, and then what happens as a result of this offence. You know, what actually happens? Do you have a terrible reaction? As I said, can you no longer breathe? Is your heart pounding too much? Do your arms and legs drop off? What happens that warrants people not to try and stop people from being offended in the future? I mean, being offended it's just like something. I don't like that. Oh, that's a shock, isn't it? I don't like it, but nothing happens, does it? Or am I missing something? This is what I don't understand. It's like, oh, I'm offended. Suddenly I've lost 25 years of my life as a result of that offence. That's what I want to know. Kerry Baldwin says, I can't remember the last time I was offended. There you are. I'd like to actually know if anybody really is offended by anything. I mean, people say they're offended, but are they really offended? Josephine Suter says, why don't you try it and we'll see if people are offended or not? But that's the thing. I don't know what offends, especially my audience. They're so used to me. Michael White says, well, they start to cry. And, well, that's a reaction, I suppose, isn't it? They have a reaction, they'll start to cry. Well, but that's their choice, isn't it? Linda Kane says, not offended by much, but there is one word which does seem to be used more and more in general conversation now. What letter of the alphabet does it start with? Does it start with Z? Sorry, no, not Zuckerberg. I'm sure there's other offensive words out there. Simon says, Branston pickle offends me before 11 a.m. Does it? And what happens if you have it? I mean, do you get a physical reaction? Colonel Craig Ratty says there are some TV programmes that I dislike, so I just do not watch them. Not offended and do not complain about it. Too many people who just like to complain for their 5 minutes of fame. Yes, this is what I really don't understand. If something offends you, you just think, well, actually, that programme's not for me. But it's. I mean, I didn't like. There was a programme I remember when I did have a television. I remember stumbling across it called Mrs. Brown's Boys, I think it was. I found it just toilet humour. It didn't make me laugh. I thought it was pathetic, personally, but clearly there was an audience for it, and I had no problem with it. There was plenty of programmes on Channel 5, late night, sort of soft porny sort of stuff, and I found them a bit puerile and a bit sort of a waste. There was no effort and what have you. There's plenty of YouTube channels that have what just do not appeal to me. They might be a bit below the belt, or they might be a bit extreme in certain areas. I don't watch them. They may be offensive by using foul slanging words or swearing words, and you think, yeah, whatever, it's not for me. And because I'm not forced to sit down and watch it, I don't. So I don't really understand what happens when you're offended. I could understand if you go to, say, a gallery or a museum and you've paid very good money to see something, and then what you're told is this is marvellous art, and you look at it and you go, well, it's just a pile of bricks or an unmade bed. I don't call that art. What's that? I want my money back. Now, that you could debate, couldn't you? Say, well, actually, I've been offended by these things, and you promised me something very nice. Well, if they promised you that you wouldn't be offended, then fair enough. It's a trade's description thing, isn't it? But I don't think anybody promises you that you won't be offended by anything. Jeff and Mandy says, Alan Sandell wants to ring but can't get through. What, you can't get through? Why can't you get through? Should be able to get through. Let's have a... That should just ring. Emergency only, it says on here. Hang on a minute. The SIM card is in. I know, we put it in. Didn't somebody ring up the other day? Hang on a minute. Let's just see if the SIM card is still in there, because it should be in there. If it's not in there, I don't know where it is. What else have we got there? Is the phone at the ready, says the lovely Julia. It is possible. It's always possible I put the SIM card in the wrong way round. We've been toing and froing with this sodding SIM card. Here we go. We'll try this. I have switched it round the other way. You'd think that the SIM card could only go in one way, but this is one of these Chinese phones, so you have to be a bit careful. Right, that does says no service, but give it a second or two. It's looking for a service. Yes, there we are. Try it now. 0793 4746 790. Be lovely to talk to you. Jimmy Savile offended me. Most sorry. Yes, well, he not only did he offend people, but he also was a criminal, wasn't he not, by the things that he did. Now, you don't have to watch him, though, do you, if he might be offensive. But what happens to you when, I mean, being offended, I understand you can go, oh, that's offensive. But what actually... Oh, hang on. Oh, I thought that was a ring then. Do ring again. It should work now. It's just telling me my balance is 0. Not that that makes any difference. I can't phone out. 0793 4746 790. What happens to you when you are offended? That would be good. Oh, here we go. We have a phone call. Let's find out who that is by putting on the old headphones. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Richard. It's Terry Banton, as of Southwater.
Ah, Terry Banton. What offends you?
Yes, I thought of something. Sitting on public buses when people get their mobile phones out and start shouting all their personal stuff at whoever they're calling.
Yes, well, I would agree. It's not nice. But what happens to you when you're offended?
Well, there was a particular example a few years ago. There was a woman sitting at the back of the bus, and she was having a row with her boyfriend or partner, and the language got rather flowery, put it that way.
Yes, so it was unpleasant.
Yeah, I was having to sit there and listen to it all. I sort of turned around and glared at her, and she just glared back at me. I then sort of went up to the bus driver. I said, could you stop the bus and speak with that lady at the back? She's swearing in a rather uncivilized way.
Yes.
He said, no, I can't do that. It's nothing to do with me.
No, so I guess that he would be in a difficult position, because what do you say to somebody who says, I'm sorry, your language is not tolerated on this bus, can you get off? No, I'm not going to. Then you get into a difficult situation. So would it be possible for you to have moved from that position so you were further away from her?
Well, it was a single-decker bus, quite small, the one that runs between Horsham and Southwater and so forth.
Yes.
But at the next bus stop, it pulled in, and I got out my seat and went up to within a couple of metres of her. I said, would you mind your language? And she said, none of your business. I said, well, it is my business, because I'm having to sit there during my journey listening to you swearing at somebody.
Yes. Anyway,
she sort of looked at me as though I was an alien from another part of the planet. So what I did was, clearly I wasn't going to get anywhere, and the driver wasn't going to intervene. So I got off the bus.
Yes, well, that was probably the best. It was irritating to do that.
I said to the driver, well, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. I'll get the next bus through, which was probably about 15 minutes away.
Yes. But at least your journey then was not marred by this awful woman who was clearly offensive. And if you found that so irritating, you couldn't tolerate it. And there was no way that she was going to back down. So you graciously took yourself out of the situation rather than escalating it by punching her in the face.
Well, I wasn't going to do that.
No, but somebody else might have done. Somebody else might have done.
I looked around, you see. There was it was that time of the day when there were quite a lot of people using their senior citizen bus passes. And I said to one of them, a lady, I said, are you happy with this, what you're listening to? And she just sort of looked at me as though, I'm not listening.
Yes.
But she must have heard it going on.
And if the bus driver had any gumption and said, right, okay, everybody, if anybody is offended by this woman, would you please stand up and look at her? And if everybody in the bus had just stood up and looked at this woman, I wonder how long it would have been before she got up and left the bus.
Yes.
But of course, people don't want to confront these things. I can understand that, because, she may have come out with a AK-45 and shot all of you. Unlikely, probably, I agree. But you never know what people are going to do.
I suspect that drivers are probably under instructions, unless there's some sort of physical assault taking place, in which case they will stop the bus and call the police. They can't do much about verbal abuse.
Yes.
And this, I'm talking about 4 years ago, before the wokeism turned up.
Right. And so, I mean, there you are, you're offended by it, it's offensive.
Yeah.
And so the only action you can do really is to take yourself out of the situation, which is what you did, which is very laudable, and made you 15 minutes late.
Yeah, well, I didn't have to get to the place by a certain time, but
no, but I mean, it was intolerant behaviour. But what I was I'm just trying to get at what happens to you or anybody when they are offended. It's irritating and it's not pleasant. I get that, and you would rather it didn't happen. And in that situation, you were able to get off the bus. But if you were on a coach journey to Edinburgh from Southwater and you had to endure that for 6 hours, well, presumably the rest of the bus, people on the bus would have said something. I mean, you couldn't tolerate that for any length of time, surely.
No. I was only on a short journey anyway. But I mean, internally, I felt like really angry, but I controlled myself.
Yes.
And the only way I could control myself. I mean, I wasn't going to join in with her swearing, but
no.
I was so incensed by the situation, I couldn't do anything about it. Other people weren't interested. It's the usual stiff upper lip of the British sometimes. You don't want to get involved.
It's interesting, the comments there. The bus driver says Julia would be risking the other passengers being hurt if he or she made a scene. And I suppose you're just trying to sort of get to the place wherever this woman needs to go so that she can get off as quickly as possible. Michael White says that people are too frightened to say anything. If you go to the aid of a copper and try to help, you could be sued by the criminal.
Yeah, but I mean, on a general point with mobile phones, some people, I mean, I've sat on trains, where people are having quite personal conversations with certain people, and I just don't think that's a public place of transport, or any public place is really a situation where we should be subjected to this. If people want to have rows, they can do it, somewhere else behind closed doors. Or
yes. So what does that say about people whose morals are so low that they are quite content to wash their linen in public and use this foul language? I mean, there was a time when that would be very much frowned on.
Yes.
But we seem to be very loose now, that we can F and blind all over the place and not really give any consideration for older people, for young children, or indeed for people of our own age. And people would just use this language. Even if you've got a child, say, excuse me, would you mind? I've got kids here. And it's like, well, I don't give a monkeys.
Yeah, I was actually in a different situation at a different time, and it was, it's that time of the afternoon when the schools are turning out, and all the, I'm talking about secondary level now, they all pile on.
Yeah.
And they all grab the seats if there are any, and this poor older lady got on with a walking stick. She looked at some young lad at the front of the bus and said, "Would you mind if I had the seat?" And he turned around and said to her, "Well, you got a free bus pass, haven't you?" And he didn't move.
Yeah, I mean, that not only is that offensive, but that's incredibly bad manners, and very much something which we are now lacking in anybody appreciating anybody else who is perhaps older than us or in a different league to us, and people are just behaving dreadfully.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at school, I mean, I'm older than you, but back in the 50s, up sort of pre-teenage age, we were taught manners at school.
Yes.
Albeit it was an independent school, but, that doesn't really matter. It's standards, isn't it?
And do you think that manners that we once had, which were taught perhaps by families and some form of code that each family would have, has gone because people are watching television and screens more, and there's this argument, I mean, it's a different argument, we won't get into it properly now, but that whole thing about, well, television reflects life, or does television influence life? And you could argue that if you show people who have bad manners to people who haven't got any manners, they think that's the norm, and hence you're spiraling down to the bottom instead of showing people that it's actually good and beneficial to be polite. Terry, interesting thoughts there.
Yes. Anyway, I'll leave the lines open for somebody else to have a chat.
Yes, I know Alan Sandell wants to get in, but it's lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for calling in.
Yes, you did. I think you had your SIM card ran the wrong way.
I did.
I tried a few times before.
It's completely my fault. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully you won't get charged for those calls.
Oh no, I'm on unlimited calls and all the rest of it.
That's offensive. Anyway, nice to talk to you, Terry.
Cheers, and bye.
Take care, bye-bye. There we are, Terry Banton, offended on the bus. So it's interesting, isn't it? I'm trying to get to the bottom of what happens to you when you're offended. Ray of Hope says, being offended is a physical experience. Physical or verbal assault or interfering with your private space is offensive. If you can switch it off or ignore it completely, then it's not offensive. But people seem to be offended by all sorts of strange things. And I just want to know what happens then. It's like, and so, whereas I completely understand it's offensive, but not only is it offensive, but it is also annoying and intolerable to be trapped in a space where somebody is swearing. It's offensive, yes, but there's more to it than just being offended. You're being subjected to something unpleasant. So I would argue that there's more to being simply offended by somebody swearing on a bus, but there is the double whammy of you can't just move away. So it becomes not just offensive, but unbearable. Hello, caller. Welcome to the Vobes Show.
Hello there, it's Alan Sandaru-san.
Ah, Alan Sandal-son. It's very nice to have you on the show. It's my fault on the SIM card there. I had it swapped around the wrong way. Idiot.
Everything is far too small these days.
It's far too small. I'm offended by the size of these things. So what offends you, young fella, my lad?
Facebook.
Facebook, right, yes. Well, I know you've had some rather irritating experiences with that social platform.
Yes. A dear lady from England who's lived in Texas for a long time was a friend of mine, and we used to converse by video chat, and and set the world to rights. And we haven't been able to contact each other, so now you know why the world is such a mess.
Ah, right. It's because you guys have not had that opportunity to set it to right. So when you say Facebook offends you, I mean, it might offend you that it's not working properly, but it's more than just offending you. It's just being annoying, isn't it? It's bloody irritating. And I suppose...
They've increased their security to a point when it's almost unusable.
Yes. But is that really being offended, or is that just frustration and annoyance?
Frustration, I would imagine.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, this is what I'm trying to analyze. Then is people mistaking when something is what they call offensive? I'm offended by it, or are they just rattled or frustrated or annoyed? Is it really that?
Well, I'm also offended by our government.
Right. So how are you? In what way are you offended?
By the government.
Yes.
Well, they promised to sort out the problem of dumping raw sewage in our rivers and sea, and they're only supposed to do that in exceptional circumstances. And there were 403,000 exceptional circumstances last year.
Right, that's a lot of exceptional circumstances.
Yeah, it's not exceptional, is it? It's normal.
Yes. So is that offensive? Is that what I want to know is what happens to you when you are offended. I think Ray put it very well. It's a physical experience. You feel something, you're bristling up inside. It's causing perhaps emotional changes, whether suddenly adrenaline is flowing through you or other endorphins or whatever it is. Something happens to you. Is that what happens when you're offended, or are you just annoyed by the guy? I mean, we can be annoyed and irritated, but
what annoyed me was that the environmental minister, whose name is, I think, Jessica Poe. If you change the last letter of her surname, it's Jessica Poo, which is very apt. She said it could cost us as much as £650 billion to solve the problem. Therefore, we're not going to.
Right.
And do you ever want to strangle somebody?
Yes. So that's that's annoying. But is being offended really just an opinion?
Well, you want to strangle somebody.
Well, I know, but are you actually offended by that, or are you just annoyed by that? I mean, I'm trying to get down to what the raw sense of being offended is. It just a matter of I'm incensed by that.
I think being offended is at a lower level of annoyance.
Right. I mean, when something's offensive, this is what I'm just trying to get to the point where, okay, so you're offended by something, so what?
Yeah, well, I get, I would say, ticked off by this massive new jargon surrounding.
But is that offensive though? I mean, I know I may be splitting hairs here because I'm a bit like that. I'm clearly a bit anal in some things.
I'm surprised.
Really, I mean, ticked off. It to me means I'm annoyed or I'm frustrated. But what is it that really offends you to the point that you can sort of say, I'm so offended that I will. I don't know what. You see, this is what I'm trying to get. What is it that happens to you when you are offended by something? And should anybody care?
I don't really understand the offensive thing.
Well, I don't, but it's like, but everyone seems to be offended.
It has to be directed to you, I think.
So it's a very personal thing, then, you think?
I think so. I mean, when I was trying to sell health insurance in the USA, I got some pretty offensive remarks, but I thought they were funny.
Linda Kane says the dictionary meaning is to be resentful or annoyed, typically as a result of a perceived insult. So so you could be annoyed at a perceived. So it's
sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no. So it is quite a personal reaction then. I mean, so the government doing something in general can be annoying, but not necessarily offensive unless they're putting that sewage onto you as you are swimming in the sea. Now, if you're swimming in the sea,
which they do,
but I guess yes, you have to kind of know that though, don't you? Otherwise, you would be swimming. I'm just swimming in the sea. I don't know anything different. But if you swim past,
see it.
Right?
No, you can see it. It's off the coast of Cornwall. They have lovely turquoise water.
Yes.
That repeatedly gets turned brown.
Right. Well, there we are. So that if you're swimming in that and you suddenly see the brown water, then you are offended by it because suddenly you are covered in
smell. The smell will do that.
Michael White says, I'm offended by the lies that are being told about our history. I love David Starkey. So, but are you really offended by that or just annoyed? I mean, I know, you said I'm a fickler to try and really want to define what being offended is, because the reason I am like that is because everybody seems to be offended. So we're told. We're offended by the some of the language used in Fawlty Towers. So the BBC decide, right, okay, because the Major may have said some words, people are offended by that, and we can't afford to offend people. My argument is, why? Let the people being offended decide whether they want to continue watching it or not. Let's not put people in who are sort of basically moderating what we see. Now, we have a moderator. We have two moderators. You've got Judith and Julia in the thing to make sure we don't have idiots in there who might offend people. And so I can see that that's a useful thing, isn't it?
What's your reaction when you get, because I listen to your podcasts, what's your reaction when you get some thought-asked criticism of one of your videos?
Yeah, well, often I think I get very, I get annoyed, but it's not so much I don't find it offensive that they're saying things. I just find it very small-minded sometimes, because the sort of things that people will say is they'll pick up on something. They won't enjoy the broad overall stuff. That I will make a small mistake, like I did in the other day when I was talking about 3,500 homes. And the first bit I said, it was 350 homes. And I meant to say 3,500. I corrected myself, and I even put it in the title of the video, on the description title on YouTube. But somebody was, Richard, you said it was 350 at one point. And you just go, oh, for goodness sake, get a life. Really? Really? Does it really matter? I've made this video and it's lovely. I'm out there and wearing a hat and what have you, and
slogging through the mud, wind and rain.
Exactly. And then somebody who has no idea, and they will say something. So I don't feel offended by it. I just feel needled.
Yeah, I think you're not offended because they're just being...
Yes, because they don't offend me.
Just being a word I shouldn't say
they
on air.
needle, though. But they needle you sometimes by their stupidity. And other times people will say things about things like... for example, the other day I did one where I went to Old Hamsey Church, and inside that, from a website, I did use an image, which was an old postcard image, which they had on their website, and I used it in the video. And somebody in the comment just put the link to the same site that the Friends of Old Hamsey Church, and I thought, as if to go, Richard, if you want to know more, you can find out more here. Well, I'd been there to get the sodding image. And I thought, you obviously didn't watch it very closely, did you? Because I got the image from that website. And if you'd gone to the website, you would have bloody seen it. It was so obvious. And so I find that needling and irritating, but it's all part and parcel of the job. And I understand that. But I'm not really offended by it, you see.
Well, yeah, perhaps because you know that you know more than they do.
Well, I don't know. I don't know more than they do, but
Oh.
but no, I'm not necessarily.
No,
People
no,
do
I think
know.
you do.
You know, people
No,
know.
no, no.
Everybody knows something more. You know, I'll do something about, I don't know, whatever it is, and then somebody else will not know the rest of the history, but they'll know one thing that I didn't know. You went. I mean, I did a video in, oh, where was it? Down in on the Sussex border walk, and I happened to do this. You know, I was walking along the street, and I was talking about some of the history, and you can only do so much history in a video. And somebody said, "Oh, Richard, you walked past a blue plaque. You walked straight past it. It was on the wall." It's like, I'm filming, I'm talking. I didn't know it was there. I didn't see it. I'm so sorry. I'm, you know, and you turn into a Basil Fawlty. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm sorry. I'll go straight back. Yes, don't worry. We'll get the film crew. We'll film that blue plaque there. Is that better?
I mean, you've made it perfectly clear, if people watch all or most of your material, that you are deliberately avoiding trying to be Wikipedia.
And what's the point? What's the point of standing outside a building and just going, oh, this pub was built in 1736. Now, I'll tell you a funny story about it. In 1830, blah, 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 blah. And you see people do that, and I think to myself, but you're just reading that from Wikipedia. Anyone can do that. If it's a story that you know about, or you said, oh, I was talking to the landlord, and he told me about this terrible thing that happened in 18, and it was, then you've got a personal attachment to it, and then that makes it work. And I think that's much nicer than just giving you some, bare facts. Even if
here's a door, here's a window,
yes,
here's a door, here's another door, here's another window.
Absolutely, so boring. Whereas even if you've got the bare facts and you can go, this pub is this was built in 1875. Look at it. Isn't it amazing that it's still here? And so you then start to have a personal reaction to the building, or you have a relationship with the building. Look at that thatch. It's amazing. I wonder how long that took to do. I do know that thatch is blah, 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 blah. You can then shove in a fact in there, but you've personalized it. That's how it should be. That's how I think it should be done. But how I think it should be done and how somebody else thinks it should be done is two different things. And I'm not right. It's just that's my personal thing. And I can't stick these people where they go, I've just got gen up on it before I go, 1874 with 452 bricks, 77 panes of glass in it, and 6,918 nails. You go, who gives a monkey's? How many bloody nails are in? Who cares? Anyway, we got to wait.
I like to take information from all sorts of places, and if I can stitch them together, that's fine. And drink a half a pint.
Exactly, and nobody even knows whether half of it's true or not. Anyway, I mean, it's all written by the victors, and then it's all Chinese whispers, and people copy each other and go, oh yeah, I read this from so and so. I'll just make out it's rearrange the words, and suddenly it's all true. Oh dear, oh dear. Anyway.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, better move on. I'm sure there's a million other people who want to avoid ringing in.
Have a good weekend.
Yes, thank you very much. Take care, Alan. Lovely to hear you. Bye-bye. There we are. That was Alan Sandell. Got me very hot under the collar. But was I offended? Not a bit of it. Not offended at all. Why don't you go and live in Europe, says Michael White. That's a good question. So, Richard, you're going to start an argument in a minute, a 5-minute one, because we're only on the hour. We've nearly done that. We may go to past tonight, ladies and gentlemen, just in case. Stupidity is not offensive. It's annoying. It can't be fixed. Yes, well done, Mr. Mocky. We have another phone call. It's all good. It's nice to have a big debate, isn't it? Get people chatting away. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. You need to turn the feed. If you're listening to me, you need to turn the whatever. Oh, you've gone. Well, that's annoying, but I'm not offended. Opinions are like our souls. Or is that our souls? Everybody has one. Everyone has an opinion. That's absolutely true. I don't know that we got anywhere near to what being offended is and whether people are actually offended, but it is absolutely fascinating, and I think it's one of those things that I think sometimes people are far too picky. Yes, says Jeff and Mandy. I think that's very true. People have an opinion, and it's that thing. I just can't. There we go. I just want to get to the bottom of what happens when you're offended. It's like, so what? Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Sean from London.
Sean from London, lovely to hear your dulcet tone.
I don't know if it's offending, but it's annoying, and I don't know if it's a London thing or whether it's all over the country, where people will come on the bus and play their music without any headphones in.
Right. Well, that's just plain annoying, isn't it? I mean, you can be offended by it, but it's also annoying, isn't it?
They are disrupting my journey.
Yes.
They just sat there with their phones.
Yes.
And
breaking the silence, forcing you to listen to their music, which you're not interested in. But then you see, if somebody, what's your favourite type of music?
Oh, I do
Anything.
like the boom boom stuff
No,
sometimes.
but what is your favourite type of music? Just off the cuff, anything.
Um,
Come on now. Tick, tick,
I
tick, tick,
don't
tick,
know.
tick, tick. Any,
classical stuff.
yeah. So, okay. So let's say that you like Bolero. That one they used in 10, the film 10 with Dudley Moore and the other woman, when they were rolling around on the sea, whatever it is. Is it in that film? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Let's say it was William Tell Overture. Now, let's say somebody gets on the bus and plays that. Would you be annoyed then? If somebody comes on and plays a piece of music that I like, actually, but the next person next to you may not like that. I've never liked the William Tell bloody Rossini. What a miserable bloke he was. All that William Tell apple on the head.
Also, that people don't take phone calls by putting the phone up to their face. They'll put the loudspeaker.
Yes, well, I do that. I'm very annoying. I am. I'll do that, and it's annoying because the person on the other end will go, "Hang on a minute, if you've got, I'm telling you some intimate secrets here. I'm telling you the secret password to my bank account, and you've got it on bloody speakerphone." And I go, "Yes, but I don't want to put this phone close to my head. It's radiating all sorts of. I'm not putting it near my head. Thank you very much. If you're talking to me, you're talking through a loudspeaker."
There was an incident because I went out to the West End last night to go and see a show. And there was an incident where something happened, and somebody in the audience went, "Bloody hell, I don't want to see this," and they had to just stop it.
Really?
I said, "Sorry, I'm going to stop the play, but if you don't want to see it, there's the door. Sod off."
Yes, absolutely.
Because apparently it's happened quite a few times in this particular scene.
Ah, interesting.
And they've just gone, "Well, there's the door. Go."
Yeah, that's right. I completely agree with you. Audrey Forbes says that's what you described on the bus there was not inconsiderate. That's inconsiderate, not really offensive. Absolutely. It's interesting. People are trying to describe, to me what being offended is, and actually mostly it's sort of annoying or irritated. But are they actually offended? I mean, if somebody, I'm just trying to think what would really offend me, and.
Well, it seems to be that you get offended on behalf of somebody else.
Yes, and certainly this woke lot become offended on behalf of other people, thinking that they are the heroes, because the people they're being offended on the behalf of doesn't actually seem capable of being offended themselves. Which is, half the problem is actually these bloody people from over here. Oh, they're terribly offended by what you just said, Mr. Vobes, but they're so offended that they can't actually come over and tell you how offended they are. So I'm going to tell you on their behalf. And you think, well, actually, they don't seem very offended.
But it isn't being offended just a miscommunication.
Yes, I mean, it's sometimes it can be a shock, can't it? It can be if somebody,
for example, a big dirty pile could be offensive to.
There's a case in point. You've raised the very thing. Somebody was obviously offended by that comment that I made that they lived in a dirty great pile, a Georgian pile, and they were offended by that enough to come and seek me out by email and say, "Can you remove that bit from the video? Can you edit us out?" And I thought, well, you're just offended by it. That's all. It's not the end of the world. You're offended by it, but other people might not. Other people might smile. They might give a wry smile and go, "Yeah, it is a dirty, great Georgian pile."
Because I was talking about this to somebody today, and he said, well, it could have been because they were concerned about the house being burgled. And I said, as far as I'm aware, they were already burgled before the video went out.
Yes, they'd already said there'd been some nasty burglaries in the area. In the email that he sent me, there was some nasty, and I said, well, I'm not actually responsible for any of the burglaries that have been in the area in the past or indeed in the future. Jeff and Mandy says, is the walk on tomorrow? No, The walk isn't on. Rewind to the beginning of the show. We'll talk about it right at the beginning of the show. We're going to meet up in a pub. If you want to come to a pub in Hassocks, do come to the pub. We're going to have a beverage, and it'll be very nice. And the pub is called the Thatched Inn. The Thatched Inn it's at the beginning of the show. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
It's a pity that I can't come tomorrow, but I've got something else on.
Oh, I'm offended now. I'm offended.
From the nearest train station.
But is it, I mean, you know, somebody could say something and I say, oh, I'm offended by that. It's like, and so? It's like, well, nothing happened, nothing changes. It doesn't change anything. You're offended. Somebody says, you know, might say the C word, for example, and you go, oh, that's a bit offensive. But it's like, yes, but it hasn't changed anything. You haven't died. Nobody. I mean, if somebody sticks a knife in your gut, that can not only be offensive, but it can also be quite physically damaging.
Sometimes you can make a judgment and then maybe distance yourself from because after the Brexit vote was announced, somebody that I knew seemed to think that it was a license for him to say racist stuff.
Yes.
And I just thought, right, well, I'll just keep my distance and just won't bring that subject up again.
Absolutely. No, it makes perfect sense. Trev's Travels by Narrowboat says you cannot give offence. Somebody might take offence. And if they've done the taking, they've done the work. So it's up to them to take offence. You don't deliberately necessarily set out to offend. Some people might set out to offend people, but generally it seems that people who are taking the offence or having this offence, or seemingly to be offended, are the ones who choose to be offended rather than the person who's actually put out whatever it is. Anyway, better move on.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it, and I'll give you a brief. There's been a TV ad on the last couple of weeks from John Lewis.
Yes, I haven't seen it.
Where there's a boy dressed up in some makeup and a dress, and he's going around the house throwing glitter all over the place. And it's a TV ad for home insurance. Well, this week it's been banned.
Oh, good.
But it's been banned because the implication is you can go around your house destroying stuff and claim on the insurance.
Yes.
So it's a miss. But a lot of people were offended by the fact that the main star of the ad was a boy, but put into a dress.
Well, you know, and people are entitled to put on dresses if they want. People do put on. I mean, I wouldn't be offended by that. But yeah, I think it's quite right. You know, you don't want to encourage people to chuck glitter around the house. Kind of, I mean, somebody's got to vacuum that up. Anyway, listen.
Well, it's a lot easier to do it with bubbles.
Yes, that's true. The bubbles just disappear, and also it's kind of a cleaning agent in the bubbles, so actually you're doing a favour.
Offended to me seems to be somebody being offended on somebody else's behalf.
There you go. Brilliant. Well, listen.
Go and ask that person. They'd go, oh, I'm not bothered.
Yeah, I'm not bothered. Well, that's it. We've got to move on. Thank you very much. Very nice to talk to you. Thanks for the call. Look after yourself, and shame we won't see you tomorrow.
Well, I'm offended that I can't be there. You should fit into my diary.
Yeah, we will next time. Take care, matey.
Bye for now.
Bye. That was Sean James Cameron being offended. I got another little subject to challenge you on after that. Thanks for not being too offended on that. Got some interesting debate. So we're going to watch some videos, and then we've got another little subject because I want to ask you this just to finish the show, just to offend you, really. So let's go into the video gallery this evening. And we're going to start with Bernie. This is Bernie's last video for a while. He's got some videos in hand, but he's got to edit them. So we're going to be a bit quiet from Bernie, I understand, which is a shame because we love his videos. But this is the last, so give him a big round of applause because he's been a stalwart of this show, putting out the videos, cutting up his main videos. You can find him on Station Master's Choice. Do check him out. The long format ones, of course, work much better because he's out on a journey doing it properly. But he very kindly chops them all up into little bite-sized pieces so that we can see them and we thoroughly enjoy them. And better than anything else, it gives you a break from my flappy mouth. So let's have a break from that and catch up with Bernie on his last video.
That bit of cloud just doesn't want to move, does it? So once more looking towards Canberra, Rye Harbour, the modern day Rye Harbour. No birds down there to speak of. Lots of rotting wood and stuff where I guess there might have been jetties at one time. That, I think, was a heron just flew by. Rather strange she's going down there because, oh, I suppose they do fish in brackish waters. Aha! The rock dove. And there is Mr. Sun. Good morning, Mr. Sunshine. Now, I thought I heard a train. I wonder. And nothing. Did you hear that echo? Right over the valleys there. So he can't be far away. Here he goes. One of the 4 coach trains transferred here from ScotRail, because up to that time they only had ridiculously stupid 2-car units which never coped with everybody, particularly during the summer. And actually I think it was lucky I did get distracted by the train, because there is the sun shining on the boats, on the fishing moorings in Rye.
And so as the Breed and the Tillingham flow through the rock channel and join the Rother to the left of those white buildings you see there, the 3 rivers of Rye become one, and my journey is at an end. Thank you so much for coming with me.
There we go. How about that? Thank you so much, Bernie. Love that walkumentary. Very apt. And very much your style and your thing. Love it, with a wonderful lyrical narration to go with it, commentary. Brilliant. Love it. Looking forward to the next stuff when you have a chance to put it together. No rush, in your own time. Lovely, and also lovely to see the sun coming up over Rye. in that video. We're going to move on. We're going to watch the next one straight off, because then I'm going to launch into another conversation piece, a question for you, see if I can upset you before the end of the week is there. We're going to see what John Fox has been up to with a talking of early morning, I think it was a sunrise or a sunset. I'm going to get this wrong either way. I'm going to plump for one of them. Up at Chanctonbury, I think. Chanctonbury. The very magic Chanctonbury ring there. Sisbury to Chanctonbury at sunrise. Sunrise early in the morning. Oh, we're not allowed to talk about him anymore, are we? There we are. That's John Fox. Thank you very much, John. Absolutely exquisite to see the scenery at that time of day, especially with that band of orange as the sun comes up. It's mesmeric. Smashing. Love that very much indeed. Just looking in the chat there where I think it was Kerry who was asking Station Master's Choice, what was the music? What was the music that you used in the end of your video there? And it's funny that because and Station Master's Choice says, oh, it's a piece from the library and I can't remember what it's called. I get that asked that all the time. It's very irritating. And it's very irritating. And the thing is, in the old days, back in the days, when I used to do stuff for, well, sort of television and stuff, you had to list all the names of every track that you used and put the start and finish in time of those tracks when they were, so that you would carry every video would have a timesheet which corresponded, so you could look at the timesheet and go, yes, at 3 minutes 10 this track starts for 20 seconds and it fades out at well, 2 minutes 30 presumably, and you would have the name and the artist and the library it came from, or the publisher and all of that. Now you don't, you know, I just spend a couple of £100 a year on a license from a company called Artlist, and they continually update their list of music. It's absolutely fantastic. But I don't have to list anything of it. The algorithm knows, thankfully, that the music that I've got is on their list, is on their library list, and it's I've got a license to use it. Sometimes it can have a hiccup, and you have to go and they say, "Oh, you've got a bit of copyright music." You know, no, actually, I don't have copyright music. Well, I do, but I've got a license to use it. And actually, the people you think is the publisher isn't the publisher, and you have to challenge it. But that's quite rare these days. Works really well. Anyway, thank you for that, Bernie. Now, moving swiftly on. We have got 25 minutes or so till the end of the hour. There's another subject to chat about, and this is a little bit controversial, I know, and it's one of those things that comes up and comes out, and people moan about it, but they say, "Oh, but the science is settled," and all of this. And I want to know, we've got this thing called COP26 coming up. I don't know what COP stands for. Perhaps somebody can tell me what that actually means. You keep hearing it COP. I always think it's something to do with the police. But it's nothing to do with cops, of course. It's this climate thing up in Scotland that nobody's really of any importance is going anywhere. Certainly none of the major polluters of the world are going to. But I want to know here is, do you actually, here's the question I've written down on this bit of paper, do you actually believe the climate change is a thing or is as bad as it is being portrayed? Is climate change a real thing? And if it is it as bad as it's portrayed? And I'm talking about man-made. And let's just assume that we know that the planet is obviously changing. It changes all the time. We can accept that, can't we? But there's a lot of people who sort of who do automatically say, well, the science has proved it is definitely. But this old subject goes on and on and on, doesn't it? There's people who will say, well, actually, it's not as bad as it is. And then there's people who are saying, well, it definitely is. And the government has decided to go down the green agenda and forcing us to have electric cars and forcing us to have these heat pumps and all of this. And yet the science, a bit like the recent pandemic that we've had, the science is not really being allowed to be argued in the public arena anymore. There was, 10 years ago you could do it, but then it was all shut down. And I just wonder whether people really believe that it's a thing, or that they believe that it's really as bad as is portrayed, or that they've just got so fed up with it they don't care anymore. And that the people such as these insolent, I wanted to say, these insolent people that insulate Britain, who have come from nowhere and very cleverly, by their dreadful tactics, have become a household name. But have they not, in my opinion, put people off to the cause rather than switched them on to the cause that they're trying to do because of the tactics that they employ? And I gather now they're just walking onto them. They're not even bothering to sit down on the motorways. I understand that they've changed their tactics where they're just going to walk straight onto the motorway, which is slightly worrying because cars will, instead of coming to a slow down and a stop, they're going to swerve to avoid these idiots and with any luck hit them, in my humble opinion, and that is an opinion, because they shouldn't be there. John B says, I'm looking forward to getting my heat pump when it arrives. I think it's going to cost you about 14 grand to have a heat pump, as opposed to 3 or 4 grand if you were replacing your boiler. Ray of Hope says, common sense indicates that all of the machines and industry of today must have some impact compared to the previous 2,000 years. And you say common sense, but also you can pick that apart and say, but does it though? Does it? I mean, it certainly has. I've got no question that it's polluting the atmosphere, and that's probably not a good, well, not probably, that's definitely not a good thing. I'm on a relatively busy road here, and I know that there's a lot of dust and particulates that come in, and I'm not very happy with that. So I have no problem with having an electric car that isn't polluting the atmosphere. I have no problem with that as such, but I don't know, because we've got Mount Etna, is it, or whichever volcano is going on, and they spew out a hell of a lot of stuff, and always have, in huge numbers, much more compared to us. Alan Williams, thank you, says COP26 means Conference of the Parties. Aha, and this is the 26th meeting of this. So that beggars the question, if we've had 26 presumably annual meetings, these are, in 26 years, nothing seems to have been decided, or things have been decided, and nothing's actually happened. Or am I wrong in that? It just seems like we've had 26 of the 26 years must have passed, and we're still sort of going, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And here in the UK, we only do about 1% anyway, so I never understood why Insulate Britain are so insistent. They won't go to China and do their protests and say, excuse me, we're going to block the roads until you get rid of the power stations in China, which I think would probably be an interesting observation to see how far they got with that. It's all lies, says Seedbird, and a load of rubbish. Been hearing this for so many years, it's got so damn boring. Well, this is what I'm beginning to feel. I mean, I personally, I am somebody who, when I very first heard this, thought this is an absolute wind-up, isn't it? It's a wind-up. And the more I've looked into it, the more I've thought about it, is I don't believe that it is as severe a thing as it's being made out. And we've had so many of these, oh, we're all going to die in 10 years' time. I can't believe it. Now, I have no problem with anybody having a difference of opinion at all. It's if you happen to have, if you share my opinion, of course, you get shouted at by the others but for being an idiot. And it's as if one side, it's the same with the Brexit debate, one side is very intolerant of the other side, instead of both sides being tolerant of each other. That's what I find offensive, to go back to the other term. Hello, caller, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's call number 2 if you want to listen to me.
Call number...
Terry.
Terry, how are you, call number 2?
That's all right. I'm quite interested with the subject you've raised at the moment.
Great.
Melting ice caps seem to me a worrying factor.
Right.
See all these polar bears sort of stranded on ice floes.
Yes, but are they really stranded on the ice floes?
Well, the ice caps are breaking up slowly, aren't they, around the edges? So,
yes, but don't they always do that?
Well, I suppose the Titanic hit one, didn't it?
Yes, and so that must have come from somewhere.
An iceberg, and that was quite a long time ago, wasn't it?
But yeah, it was over 100 years ago, wasn't it? 1912.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose. So David Attenborough, he's a great champion, isn't he? Apart from Greta Thunberg, somewhere in Scandinavia, and she's always...
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing how you can say in David Attenborough, who's probably spent a whole lifetime studying animals and reporting on them and the environment and various things, and then in the same breath you mention somebody who's 18, I think, whose life has spent a long time. Well, all her life, all her grown-up life doing a similar thing. I mean, these are the two pinnacles of the world. It's just that David Attenborough, I think, has a little bit more weight, and I would listen to him a lot more than the Doom Goblin, personally, because it seems that children really, aren't terribly educated from birth and know the right thing and the wrong thing. I would probably listen to somebody who's in their 80s more, because they've been around longer. But I still don't buy the argument.Personally, but
supposedly our CO2 emissions are supposed to be penetrating the ozone layer, and the ozone layer, as we know, protects us from ultraviolet rays that can be harmful if one lies around on a beach all day. But probably on Worthing, there aren't a lot of hot days these days.
No, that's true. But I don't really understand what. Does CO2, can CO2 penetrate the ozone layer? I don't think I don't know about that. How do you know that?
Well, I mean, I don't know personally, but a few years ago there was a big hoo-ha about the ozone layer being spiked by harmful emissions.
Yes, but there wasn't that CFC gases.
The ozone layer keeps the harmful sun's rays from away from planet Earth.
The thing is, though, in the past, we've had much higher CO2 levels than ever before, and we've had now pretty lame amounts of CO2. So in the past, if it was doing that, then it would have done this thing to the ozone layer. But I do remember the CFC gases that came from fridges, and we had to change the gas in the fridges because there was this hole in the ozone layer. But I think it's healed up, as Audrey Forbes Hamilton says.
Yeah, maybe we should all become fish eaters and not meat eaters, because cattle spew out all sorts of methane from parts of their body, don't they?
Well, you see, this is where the argument gets a little bit daft, because now we're saying that we'll all turn into vegan or eat very little meat anymore, and yet, you know, ever since man was able to be upright, he's been chasing after animals and killing them when he can, and that not all the time. And has been eating meat. Now, then, you know, whenever it was, I don't know, about 5,000 years ago, he started to farm them, or maybe 10,000 years. He was farming them. But of course, we do, and I completely agree, we have farming practices for meat now which are not only offensive but abhorrent. I can't bear to see what the amount of food that is going through this chain, that we have this dreadful factory thing. And I agree that we should maybe reduce the amount of meat we have and have more respect for it, but I think that's a completely different argument. I don't think that the animals themselves with their methane and stuff has anything really to do with the effect on climate change.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century,
yes,
I mean that was led by this island of ours, you know, with all the entrepreneurs that came in with inventing steam locomotives,
yes,
Stephenson's rocket and all that. I mean, they're all burning fossil fuels, so there's a lot more pollution in those days than there is now. So
yes, I guess the argument is that that's all part of the contribution, and as a result of us having changed the way from moving out of the Dark Ages, as it were, into a more modern world in which we can now manufacture steel and we can make plastics and we can have hip replacements and give people artificial eyes out of a bit of acrylic, and we can save people's lives a hell of a lot quicker. We can put tarmac down on the road so that's nice and smooth. We can have iron so that we can run trains quickly and get people across the world. We can build aircraft so that people can have all these meetings. All of this seems to be such a dreadful thing, that our lives have been so enhanced by all these wonderful pieces of mechanics, which basically, thanks to a lump of coal, which ultimately is really a bit of carbon that was in the atmosphere that then got buried, and all we're doing is putting that carbon back several hundred million years later. I can't really see that there was a big problem with all of that. We seem to have gained.
Yes. Oh, well, there we are.
There we are. Well, all right, Terry, thank you very... So do you, to the question I'm asking is, do you believe that it's happening, or is it overplayed?
I think it's overplayed, but behind a lot of this is, particularly with the Conservative Party at the moment pushing the COP26, is they see some money in it, you know, for...
Well, I agree there.
Companies that will start producing heat pumps that were mentioned a little while ago.
Yes.
And I mean, heat pumps that probably most dwellings can't, either the occupants can't afford them, or they don't have if they have older housing stock, it's going to be very difficult to modify them.
Yes.
I mean, could you probably get a heat pump in your backyard? I don't know.
The thing is, I don't want one. I don't want to modify. I'm quite happy burning trees. You see, I'm carbon neutral. You know, a tree will absorb the carbon and it grows, it dies, and it's in a piece of wood, and then I go and burn it 2 or 3 years later once it's seasoned, and I'm just putting back the carbon back into the atmosphere, and then I'll burn some more wood which has taken the carbon out of the atmosphere and turned into a tree. And so I'm just carbon neutral. Not only am I carbon neutral, but I'm spending the money in the local community, not giving it to a big corporation to heat my house and all that. I do a small amount with the electricity, but in order to cook my dinner and dry my clothes and all of that. So I'm a goody two-shoes, mate, me. Anyway, listen, Terry, better move on. Time is ticking against us, but lovely to talk to you.
Okay, again, bye.
Bye. There we are, Terry Benton with his view on climate change, and he thinks it's a little bit overdone. What do you think? Is it overdone? Lots of interesting thing. Linda Kane says all the progress since the Industrial Revolution has no doubt had some effect on the normal climate cycle and unbalanced the uptake of CO2 by trees. Has it? I don't know. You see, this is where I struggle, because we've had more CO2 in the background in the previous time than we have at the moment, and we're all reducing our CO2 like nobody's, apart from obviously China and places like that. But I'm not convinced. The trees and plants desperately need CO2. I mean, golly, we've had this absurd situation where there's not enough CO2 going around for people to have their foods vacuum packed and looked after the food so that we can have it fresh in the supermarkets. And so we've had to have a herbicide or an insecticide or a fungicide company. It's none of those. It's something else. It's the what's the one where instead of cow dung, it's fertilizer. There we are. Thank you very much. The brain got there in the end. Fertilizer company. We've had to pay them extra so that they will make the CO2 so we can have this clean CO2. But the irony is, of course, then we're being told we're pumping too much CO2 into the atmosphere, which, of course, the trees and the plants all need. And isn't it also true, from what I understand, that some of the growers of food, they inject CO2 because plants need the CO2 to grow. They don't have enough in the atmosphere. They need a little bit more to make them grow because there's so many people on the planet, so they can grow much quicker and enhance. So we actually probably need more CO2. The balance between the amount of CO2 produced and that used by trees, says Linda Kane a second time. Thank you very much. Adrian says we need more trees as they need the CO2. Absolutely. Jonathan Fox says, I am a creationist, so I don't believe in evolution or that the world was ever inhabitable. I don't know whether that's a true statement or just a jest. A creationist. That's very hard, I'm afraid, for me to swallow. And please don't take offence, but I don't really quite understand what that means. But you're absolutely entitled to your view, like I am on my view on whether there's global warming happening or not. Let's have a look. It's all about balance, says John B. Ray of Hope says there is a lot of deforestation in the past 50 years, less trees and more industry. But the question is there a lot of deforestation? Or are there other things that are grown as well? The things that I worry about with deforestation is it's not just the trees that disappear, it's the wildlife and the environment. That bit worries me, upsets me. But it does seem... I heard a chap saying that actually if you take a look over wherever the Amazon... Let's just do this. I want to just do this. I'm going to do this. He says, look, go on Google... Street View, Google Maps or Google Earth, I suppose is the thing. I don't know whether Google Map 3D will do. Google Earth. Let's see if we can get this up. And he says, go and have a look. So this is a... Okay, it's got to load for a minute. Hang on. I want to try this. He said, go over to the Amazon and just see actually how many trees there are. Use the... All right, we've got to get rid of all of this. So where is the Amazon? I don't really know my geography terribly well, but we're in Brazil. Is this the Amazon down here? Are we looking... Is that satellite? I suppose that is a satellite image, isn't it? And he said, go and actually have a look and see how many trees there really is. Because we keep getting told that there's all this deforestation going on. But actually, once they've finished with the land, nature will just grow it straight back. Now, can someone tell me where the Amazon is? But look how many trees there are actually. Look how green this really is. And yet we're told that the Amazon is being chopped down so much that there are no rainforests anymore. But I can't believe it. Look, see how green that. It's not just Google painting that green. There's a patch. There's a patch of mountainous area where there isn't any. Okay, but zoom out, as I'm doing. I mean, my goodness, look, there's a lot of greenery. Okay, so some of this isn't terribly green, but let's just zoom in a bit. Well, we can still see... You see, I'm not sure that what we're told is always true. We're told that the polar bears aren't out there, but I think they are out there because they're not just dependent on ice. They were actually bears. We're also told that they're cutting up the Amazon and that there are no trees. But these are all places which are far away and hard to go to. But actually, fortunately, we have the tools. The earth is greener now than it has ever been, says Michael White. And I absolutely agree with that. I wouldn't say it was greener than it's ever been. I mean, look, around here in Libya and Algeria and Chad and all around here, you don't get many trees there. Now, if we could get some more CO2, we could get some trees in there. That would be nice. Green up that part of the world would be very good. And all round in the Middle East here is not terribly green. That's because it's on the equator. But the bits that we're told that the Amazon's disappeared, South America, well, that looks all a little bit dodgy, doesn't it? But the bits that we're continually told has no trees seems to have trees. So I just can't buy all this stuff anymore. I find it very odd. I just find it very strange. Let's have a look. The atmosphere on the rainforest is shrinking by the size of Wales. It says, but where? Where's the proof of that? I mean, these are just statements, aren't they? I mean, but who says? How do you know? This is the problem. These are just statements. And I'm not trying to be offensive to you, Ray, because I appreciate burning your lovely trees and putting some of the CO2 back into the atmosphere that those trees had taken out. And it was very nice to meet you, and I don't want to upset you because we had a good laugh when I came round your house. But at the same time, sort of sometimes it's just these statements come out. But how does anybody know? That's the thing. That's what I'm getting at. It's like this being offensive. It's like Colonel Cragratty says a bigger problem than CO2 is the pollution by other man-made chemicals and materials in the water and atmosphere. Now, I'm absolutely on that. I think we are the worst polluters in other materials, like all the plastics that are going into the oceans and that are ending up in all sorts of places that we're not cleaning up. And we're all spendthrifts, and we hoard stuff. And I mean, my house is full of stuff that I don't really need anymore. And then there's all this landfill that it goes into. I'm absolutely in agreement with that. I think pollution is a far worse thing than worrying about climate change. So that's where some of the things, in my opinion, they cross over. So having an electric car is pollutant free in terms of the roads you're driving around. But of course, we've got to charge them up with electric. So you've got to get the electric from somewhere. And you've got to, if you've got it, if the wind power was reliable, or we were using nuclear or something, then that would be absolutely fine, no problem at all. But we're not. And wind power isn't as reliable as we're all led to believe. Hopefully it will be at some point. If we all blow very hard, maybe it will. But so I'm happy with having an electric car, an electric van, or an electric HGV, if you can get such an electric HGV, which will do all the stuff we need it to. I'm fine with that because nobody wants the stuff that comes out the exhaust pipes, although with the modern cars, we have really greatly reduced what comes out of the exhaust pipes, as long as people have their MOTs and look after their engines and things, than ever before. We must be in a much healthier environment than we were. And not everybody is burning coal, which I agree is not very pleasant. I only burn wood, which is a little bit more pleasant. But you certainly don't want that in your house, It's a very difficult thing. John B says, Richard has solved the world's problems. I'm not sure that I've solved anything. I'm just asking questions. I don't have any of the answers. Tracy Murphy says, glad a nature area near Dummer in Hampshire was saved this week from a warehouse being built on it. Certainly, my biggest beef at the moment is the extraordinary amount of stuff that we are building on farmland in particular. That's the thing that really irks me, is that once you've built on the farmland, it's no longer farmland. And that, for me, is abhorrent. I think that is just a no-no, personally. Julia says nature will grow back, but only after we have stopped taking from it. But this is the thing. Once you've deforested the... So going back to the thing about the deforestation in the Amazon basin or wherever it is, in the rainforest, once you've taken the trees out and they've gone, what are you doing with that? What do they do with the land? That's what I want to know. What are they doing with the land? And if they're leaving the land, trees will grow again. And they'll grow relatively quickly. Okay, the thing that worries me, of course, is all that wildlife and diversification, diverse nature and animals and all of that. Yes, that's a thing, but that's not climate change. But what are they doing with the land? Are they building concrete houses on that? Or what are they doing with all this so-called land that is deforested? That's, but trees will be chopped down and trees will grow again. They are fantastic. They are wonderful things, trees. Paul Cockrell says peat bogs soak up more CO2 than trees. We should encourage a lot more peat bogs. Or not, depending on whether we want the CO2 in the atmosphere. It's a fascinating debate. And it just goes to show, really, that people, I think that people are informed in different ways on it, which is absolutely fantastic. The fact that we can have a debate and not get up anybody's nose, hopefully, not taking offence and therefore being insulted by it all, is a good thing. And that's what I really enjoy about this and about the people who watch this show, that we can have a debate. I can put my cards on the table and say, this is what I think. You can say, Richard, you're absolutely wrong. And I can say, well, you may well be right. What am I? I am not an expert on anything. I have an opinion which I have formed. I don't buy into this. You might buy into that. It doesn't matter. We're all good friends and we're all going to have a lovely weekend. And that's all that matters. And we've had a little chance to put the world to rights and whatever it is. We're all bloody unable to do anything against whatever the government decide to do this way or that way. You know, no matter whether we vote them in or vote them out, they seem to be the powers that be. These people who serve us seem to think that we are beneath them when it should be the other way around. But, you know, we don't seem to be in any power, which is a shame, to be able to do anything about this other than have a good old debate and the moan and maybe change each other's opinion a little bit. And that would be good. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the debate. I hope nobody's been upset or offended by it. And if you have, don't take it too personally. It's not meant personally. None of it. It's just a friendly, happy little place that we can talk about these things without anyone getting too upset, hopefully. But, you know, that's the way they are. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. If you are coming on the walking trip tomorrow that is now a pub crawl, well, we're only going to go to one pub. Hopefully the pub is opened. I haven't been in touch with them at all and made any arrangements because I only thought a handful of people would turn up. But there we will be at 11 o'clock at the Thatched Inn in Hassocks. You're very welcome to come along. And if there's too many of us, then we'll have to go and find another pub, maybe come with another recommendation in your pocket, which would be good. But we hope that was all jolly and fun. And what we will do after that, I don't know. We'll probably just stop the walks until the new year now because it's so difficult to keep not knowing what the climate is going to be doing. Anyway, I hope you have a nice weekend. Have a good evening. Tomorrow, just so you know, tomorrow I will be putting out a Saturday chat as opposed to the Sunday chat because Sunday is Halloween. And so I've swapped them round because on Sunday I've got a Halloween Philip Mercer story for you. So that's something to have a little look at if you're so inclined. Anyway, take care. Thanks very much for watching. Look after yourselves. It's been great to have a chat with you. And I will see you over the weekend or the next time on Monday on The Vobes Show. Till then, toodle pip. Bye-bye.